So the first person that I would like to invite is Omar Abbosh. He is the Chief Strategy Officer from Accenture. Okay? Omar Abbosh is the Accenture Chief Strategy Officer. He is responsible for leading the growth and strategy organization and overseeing all the aspects of the company's strategy. Mr. Abbosh has managed responsibility for Accenture industry programs and investments, the Accenture industry for high performance, Accenture research, and the company's innovation program. In addition, he is responsible for the company's corporate citizenship initiatives, including Skills to Succeed. So I'm very happy to invite Omar to the stage.
Organizations that yesterday were assumed unassailable are today's go-to cookie jars. Cyber attacks. They can happen anywhere. They can happen everywhere, even in your own backyard. Security breaches are more creative, more powerful, and more innovative than ever, like invading hordes in a digital Trojan horse.
Credit card numbers and security codes for more than 2 million shoppers have appeared on the black market.
Investigators have traced the origin to an online shopping site whose executives were unaware of the intrusion.
No target is too big or too small or too well defended. It's not enough to outmaneuver cyber attackers. You have to out-innovate them by simulating real-world cybercrime, launching, replicating, and going well beyond zero-day threats with red teaming that uses the same threat-centric tactics, techniques, and procedures that their attackers use or will use.
If you're going to beat a heavyweight champ,
get yourself a real sparring partner.
Exploiting the weaknesses that put your company at risk. That's why Accenture, your partner in the boardroom, also protects your backroom, basement, war room, and security operations center, constantly preparing, protecting, responding, and defending, all in the name of business resilience. Welcome to Accenture Security, where together we red team the toughest cyber challenges out there. Not just information security engineers, but innovators who have the creativity, ingenuity, and technical depth to actually replicate the sophisticated attacks that adversaries wage every day. Accenture Security, building business resilience from the inside out, so you can grow with confidence.
Good morning, Tel Aviv. And Michal, thank you very much for that introduction. We happen in Accenture to agree 100% with everything she just said. It turns out, in fact, that these sorts of real-life simulations of adversaries really do work in our clients' boardrooms to get the board of directors' attention, to get them to pay real attention to the security topic, to elevate it as a strategic level, but without the nasty real-world consequences. And so, as the French cultural theorist Paul Virilio said, every new technology, when it emerges, has its own negativity. And the negativity is invented at the same time as the technical progress. So in my opinion, this is a little bit of a miserable view of the world, but unfortunately, he's right. The very technologies that empower us to innovate, particularly in the digital and the cloud arenas, are exactly the technologies that introduce the new vulnerabilities that the attackers use against us. And so in Accenture, we think it's a little bit our job to understand these new innovations, understand the subtle technologies and the vulnerabilities that exist within them, put them in a business language, and bring that to the board of directors to make it a strategic priority, and not simply a compliance objective. And more, we see, of course, that is indeed happening, because our job is to help create visibility for the future course of the ship, and to make sure that this kind of thing doesn't happen on our watch. So when the ship was invented, so was the possibility of the shipwreck. So you may be asking yourself, why is Accenture here and why is their Chief Strategy Officer here? So I'd like to begin with a couple of words on what is Accenture. So Accenture is actually quite a big company. We're 375,000 people. The net revenues of the company are north of $30 billion. We're about $70 billion of market capitalization on the New York Stock Exchange. We have offices in about 50 plus countries. We serve 40 plus industries, and we organize ourselves in 5 markets: strategy, consulting, digital, technology, and operations. And what I'd like to talk to you about today is how we think about the security topic, and also some moves that we're specifically making right here in Israel. So when we think about our business, we believe our mission is to bring innovations of all kinds into the enterprise to help companies unlock value. And today, a lot of that innovation is around the digital world. And of course, digital and cloud creates tremendous opportunities, but at the same time brings new vulnerabilities, and we owe it to our clients to make sure we help them manage and mitigate those. So with almost 400,000 people working in the boardroom with our red teaming, working in the back office, working in the core operation across many industries, we have some perspectives that I hope are relevant and useful for you in this conversation today. And in my role, I'm outstandingly lucky in that I get to see all the innovations of Accenture working with our clients across every industry, and to take a perspective and say, well, what does that mean for us as we think about the security topic? So with that intro, let me give you a little bit of context. I'm sure you're familiar with this, but the world is spending an awful lot of money on security. It's actually a huge market. 84 billion is a massive market. I admit, not as big as the market for the nasty people that Michal mentioned. But for people providing products and services in the security space, it's a tremendous growth opportunity, and all the forecasts see us growing massively from a huge market to an even more huge market by 2020. The funds are being spent in big corporations and all the way down to startups. The VC industry is booming, and you can see here a major spike in the last couple of years around VC investment in the startup community, which again, for many of you, is tremendously exciting. And when you go out and talk to clients and say, what are you spending the money on? You can see skyrocketing predictions of investments in threat intel and other areas that they want to focus on. So from the point of view of a service provider or a product vendor, that's great. The problem is it working? And the answer is not really. No, it isn't working. The assaults, as you know, have increased. They've increased in severity, they've increased in frequency, and so the risks multiply facing society. We're releasing some research this week with HFS, which has found that 80% of enterprises find that corporate insiders, so that means employees, have engaged in data theft. So this is people who work for companies adding to the security problem. Most of the attacks that are public, like the one on Target, were using actually relatively old school technology, phishing type approaches, stealing credentials. Some of the more recent attacks that we see are actually much more horrible. The power grid attack in the Ukraine, which took 80,000 people off the grid for a sustained period of time, frankly could have been much worse. The Bangladesh attack that stole $100 million and compromised some of the payment and SWIFT systems that you'll hear people talk about, and the American superconductor loss of intellectual property that cost 600 jobs and $1 billion of profitability. Those are very serious issues. And of course, in response to that, very many companies are working to tackle the issue. But as you all know, the risk is very asymmetric. You know, when I think about Accenture with nearly 400,000 people, we have a lot of endpoints to protect. It takes just one person to make a bad mistake. And so the most stressed out person in Accenture is not the CEO or the CFO, it's our CISO. It's a very tough job that he has to deal with. So this asymmetry of the risk, plus the cost of attacks really declining, means that any company and any individual, any one of us, is open to attack. I think there was a time when people thought you had to be rich and famous to be attacked, and that's just not the case now when all of this is mechanized and very cheap. So you'll say, so what is the world doing to address this? And you know, from our perspective, we see companies working in two primary ways. One is they're buying in advice around this general GRC space, so governance, risk and compliance advisory services to tackle the problem, to think about how they organize policies and processes. And the other aspect is this massive proliferation of point solution technologies that address specific issues, which at one level solve problems for the CIO, and another level, because of the fragmented, heterogeneous landscape, open up new vulnerabilities and new problems, a new headache. And so the two approaches in combination, the advisory services approach, the point solution approach, don't actually tackle the issue that we're dealing with. And Accenture, in our day-to-day work with clients, we work with most of the Fortune 100 companies, the world's biggest enterprises. Our red teams test them in terms of what they have in place. And some of the most sophisticated companies with some of the highest expenditure, and we've never yet failed to take control of a target system landscape. The vulnerabilities are there, and they arise from all sorts of issues, sometimes the most simple ones like the alert is lost in a fog of false alarms, the operator sends a message, opens a ticket, but nothing then happens in the system. And those are the issues that big enterprises are dealing with every day. There is no silver bullet. So we're playing catch up, and the thing is what do we need to do? And the reason I think it's such a huge, important topic is not simply the cost of security and the expense on security, the security systems and the security products themselves, but it's actually the massive opportunity cost of not conducting nimble, agile business in a digital world. Companies spend so much time protecting, they take their eye off the ball from innovating and growing, and that actually is the real risk to our economy. So I'm sure we all agree that the attackers are sophisticated, they're nimble, they're nasty, they share their IP, their intellectual property on the dark web, they buy and they sell the IP, and so the malicious methods can move very quickly. Well, how about us? How about the people on the good side? Well, the answer, unfortunately, is that we're remarkably fragmented and siloed. And so actually the greatest challenge in competitive industries with laws around data and regulation is how to collaborate much more swiftly than you see today. So the bottom line is the current model of spending more and watching the attacks increase is not really a great option. We need to move to something a little bit different. And what I'm really going to talk to you about today is all about harnessing a power of collective ingenuity, how to get the power out of the whole ecosystem of people who are acting in a positive interest. And the previous speaker hinted at this, and I believe this very firmly. No one company has the monopoly on innovation. And actually what's happening here is we're being out-innovated by people who are sharing their innovations, and we need to share our innovations from a wide ecosystem. And so the whole thing is, how do you get the power of the ecosystem and bring that to bear against our adversaries? So we propose a more collaborative approach. I genuinely believe that using some of the things I'm about to talk about will really help make the bar much harder to climb for the attackers, make it much more expensive for them to attack us, and certainly eliminate some of the, if you like, the easier hacking beginners, and perhaps affect criminal gangs and terrorist agencies, although of course with nation states who are bent on this course of action, a much more sustained approach will be required, and one thing won't solve the thing. So I'd like to talk about three things that are pillars of this collective ingenuity strategy that I'm talking about. The first one is taking an industry lens on the world as you think about security. We serve, a company called Pokemon did a survey last year and found that less than a quarter of companies share threat intelligence in their own industry. Less than a quarter. I think that's crazy. I really do. I think it's completely mad. And if industries could collaborate more to understand the threats that are pervasive in their sectors, they would do a much better job about responding and reacting. We also see security providers providing solutions that are generic and consistent across industries. It also doesn't really make sense, because you have to understand the nature of every industry, understand what the attack surface is in each industry, understand the nature of the attackers who are interested in that industry, and what are they really after. So this point about applying an industry lens is crucial, And in Accenture, we think very hard about what does it mean if you're an oil and gas company running a refinery or an offshore rig, if you're running an autonomous vehicle and a connected car system, if you're trying to protect the molecules of a life sciences company, or if you're trying to protect yourself against bank fraud. Those issues are all very different. And so it makes sense to understand the different adversaries, the different attack surface, the different systems that are employed, the different controls that are in place. And it's only when you have the full visibility of the attack landscape in that sector that you can really put together the appropriate and strongest mitigation and defense approaches to develop the most resilient enterprise. And I know that in the conference in the coming days, we have our industry-specific roundtables, and I really hope as many of you will attend those as possible to share information amongst yourselves on a bi-sector basis. The second area I'd like to talk about is around developing a healthier business immune system. It turns out that, of course, technology is indeed a crucial piece of how to do this. And we are seeing the emergence of a range of new technologies that at Accenture we think are very interesting and very important. As you know, the perimeter-based approach is not doing the job. And similarly, most of the technologies employed today are monitoring and reactive oriented. And our thinking is actually we need to automate as much as possible of the monitoring and the reaction to free up investment capacity to move it towards more proactive techniques. The problem is, of course, all this technology is expensive. And so how do you prioritize? And the role of the senior executive is to think about the investment prioritization. And so what we're seeing is the emergence of a range of platforms that are very supportive of the automation of some of the remediation and monitoring parts of the job here. The platforms are using extreme data science and very advanced visualization techniques. So for example, if you have a platform monitoring intelligence feeds from multiple companies in a sector using AI and machine learning, it can spot anomalies faster. You can figure out which are the most nasty, and then you can put out a warning across the companies in the ecosystem to create more of a threat intelligence ecosystem than we've had before. And actually, we are seeing the emergence of techniques that move beyond looking at what happened yesterday, find out what's wrong, and then copy that, but moving to find never seen before vulnerabilities, the invisible hackers, as well as the emergence of cyber hunting techniques where within your own virtual network, you can point, shoot, and kill the adversary that's inside your domain. So the combination of those sorts of techniques can be extremely powerful. Similarly with advanced visualization, Michal mentioned this. One of the dirty secrets of the security industry is that the typical average dwell time of a hacker inside our environment is 150 days. That gives them enormous time to reap whatever damage or havoc they want to. And so we have to be able to move faster. And so right now in Accenture Labs, we have a system that is tracking 2 million other systems in real time with actionable alerts, using advanced visualization with super clever clustering techniques and security analytics, actually mainly on open source technology like Spark, that is allowing us to move much more quickly than most of the readily available commercial systems that typically track about 10,000 systems at a time. So this scalable visualization with the cyber hunting I spoke about can give companies a real jump on the attackers and make their job that much harder and that much more expensive. We believe a holistic approach to security is essential, and so we actually bring together a very wide range of security techniques and technologies into our cyber fusion centers. We have these now in Washington, DC, in Bangalore, in Prague, and now also in Israel. And our cyber fusion centers are supporting our clients in sniffing out their potential vulnerabilities and helping them respond at pace. It's in those places actually that we operate our own cyber defense and cyber intelligence platforms using the sorts of technologies I just spoke about, where we bring together our own ecosystem of partners, for example, Endgame in one of ours. Also, to build the hardened defenses, to build the immune system, you know that an attacker is not a 1 or 0. They're not a noise on the wire. There's always a human behind the adversary. So understanding their psychology, understanding proactively what are they really after in order to create the right defenses is crucial. And this is why we bought a company called Fusion X, which specializes in simulations and actually taking on the control of the client's ecosystem, as you saw in the opening video that we had there. We really believe that you have to assume the attacker is inside the perimeter, and so a full end-to-end approach is the only way that works. And so we're putting our money where our mouth is. I'm very happy to announce, in fact we announced this morning, that we're extending that logic. We made an acquisition of Maglan here in Israel today, bringing into the Accenture family another group of super experts in this space. And I'm looking forward to seeing them all at the Black Hat conference a little bit later in the summer. The third part of the strategy here is about driving innovation deliberately through the ecosystem. We believe that every company needs to find its own ecosystem around it of where your innovation happens in the security space, and you bring this to defend yourself. So you can take a much more collaborative but also aggressive approach towards the attackers. Accenture plays a role as an interlocutor between the innovation that's happening in the technology and industry ecosystems and bringing that to our clients, and we look forward to doing much more of that. And so right here, what better place than in Tel Aviv with all the extremely smart and brilliant minds in the cyber community, more than 300 companies, startups in the cyberspace, which means that Israel is number 2 only to the US in terms of the scale of the industry. So again, we're opening, in addition to the things I just mentioned, a cyber lab in Israel as part of the network of Accenture labs, where we will do our R&D around security here. The cyber lab will focus on the latest in threat intel, active defense, passive detection techniques, IR, as well as state-of-the-art forensics, malicious software analyses, and IoT security, all with the idea of being applied within the near term at our clients. So as you can tell, hopefully, from what I'm saying here, that we don't think our business is just about methodology and advisory and implementing technology. We think it really is about harnessing the full power of an ecosystem of innovation and bringing that to our clients. And in that spirit, I'd like to talk to you, I'd like to bring a colleague of mine on here, my friend Nadav Zafrir from Team 8, with whom we're extending our partnership, to say a few words about our extended collaboration. Nadav.
Omar, thank you so much. We're really pleased to announce this partnership. Honestly, when Michael Redding called us a few months ago and said that Accenture is keen to join this syndicate that we were building, we thought it was a bit awkward for us to join forces with a company of over 300,000 people. So Michael encouraged us to get on the phone and speak to Paul Doherty, the CTO, and to Lisa O'Connor, who runs the labs in DC for cybersecurity. And half an hour later, we went back to the other investors and we said, we have a new partner in the syndicate, and that's Accenture, because I think we share the vision. I think working together, we can bring value add that we haven't been able to so far. Your reach is obviously incredible, and I think by putting your money where your mouth is here in Israel, you're doing the next step in this partnership. So I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Thank you, Omar.
So there goes a true hero from the security space. So just to start to close out here, so as a public officer of a listed company, I understand exactly the issues around sharing data, sharing information, but hopefully you can see that we really believe that this business of using the network, the ecosystem to drive the innovation is exactly the way to tackle the cyber crime and the sea of cyber issues that we see in front of us today. So the deal here is we believe that if we can go past the day-to-day of worrying about protecting ourselves from security, it gets us back in our day job of innovation and growth, and that's exactly what this is all about. So this week's conference is an amazing opportunity to connect with the startup ecosystem, with all the companies, with the academics, all the people who are deep in this space, to figure out what's the right ecosystem for your business, and how do you get onto a more proactive stance to tackle this? How do we harness the power of the collective ingenuity to innovate and build more resilient businesses together? It seems to me that the attacker's motives are relatively well known, and we need to draw our power from the ecosystem to fight back. And as security leaders in this space, we owe it to the public, we owe it to the business world to do that. And I urge you to work with us to help the good guys become more of a force to be reckoned with. Thank you very much for your time.